told me, don't do a joke. You've never seen a dean that didn't have a joke, but I guess I won't tell a joke. On the boss's orders. It is my privilege to serve as the Dean of the College of Architecture. My name is Charles Graham. And people always want to know, where did you come from before? And what did you do before that? And so I'm sort of all mixed up. I'm an architect, interior designer, have licenses in both of those areas. 2 degrees in city planning, but I've been tenured in construction management, so you don't think I'm mixed up. That might be proof of it. But my forte has always been interdisciplinary cooperation, collaboration. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the College of Architecture other than to say a couple things about it, because I gave an introduction yesterday. But I like to say we're a small college. We're glad to have all of you here to participate in this program, and hopefully you've had a chance to walk through our building. We do have a new building that's 3 years old. It was built during a very bad economic time in the country. The Board of Regents decided to go ahead and make an investment in our college. And it's the old geology building for the few of you who are from the campus and know the history. Before the faculty moved into the building in 2011, we were down on Main Street in Norman in an old Hobby Lobby building, which was before that a TGNY building, and some other things. And it turns out the students actually still like that facility better than the new building because it was easier to interact and parking was easier. And they were next to a liquor store. That was really the faculty's interest in the location. I like to say we're not perfect, but we're damn good. We have about 430 students in the college and 5 academic units, about 43 full-time faculty. We've been really fortunate in the last few years to be able to hire some new faculty. We've had some retirements and some moves, and we have a fantastic group of faculty. We have 12 new teachers or researchers that have joined us this fall. You don't think the place was busy in the spring doing interviews. It was unbelievable. Some days we had maybe 2 or 3 people in the building doing interviews, and for small faculty it's pretty tough to get all the committees together for those searches. But we did it, and we're just excited at the transformations that are occurring in the college. We have a stable leadership. Our directors are all in permanent positions. We have 2 associate deans. They're in permanent positions. I know one of them is here tonight, and I think the other one may be on his way. But at any rate, it's a good place to work. It's a typical university town, about 150,000 people, and great place to live, great place to have children to go to school, and a great university to work at. We're very proud of a couple of things here. Obviously, we never say anything without saying something about our most famous installation over there, the football program and sports programs. I used to be down at Texas A&M University, Johnny Manziel's university, I like to call it, and they always had the idea that if they could beat the University of Texas, sorry Hollins, that it was a winning season. These guys up here have only one goal in mind, and that's to be a national champion. So it's a whole different scale, different focus. The other thing is that because of our uniqueness for interdisciplinary studies and for the pursuit of excellence in education, some of you may not know this, but I think it's a brag fact, certainly on the university president. But we have the largest number of National Merit Scholars on campus, and this fall we had 311 National Merit Scholars show up here on the OU campus, and that's the highest number of any public university in the country. So we do have a focus on educational excellence, and the expectation is that emphasis and that goal is important to us in education of architects and interior designers and construction managers and landscape architects and regional city planners. And so there are a lot of things that we're very proud of here. As you might know, in Oklahoma there are 39 Native American tribal groups. Some of those have their own governments. And so connecting to the history of the Native Americans is very important to our university and to our college. So we have a lot of things that are, I think, giving us a sense of direction, and we do our best to try to address those and satisfy them. Creating making is one of the themes that we think is very important to our focus and our vision. And this is our second time to do this in 3 years, and our goal is to have this conference every 3 years at the latest, and to be able to exchange ideas about creativity and the making of ideas that come from our thoughts and our creative processes. So, very interesting place, and I'll just say it's a great place to work, and I know many of you come from great places too, and we're just glad to have you here. I am going to introduce our speaker here in a second, and I wanted to say a few things about the Division of Architecture. As you know, if you go back in history and look at the Bruce Goff time in the late 40s and through the mid-50s, you'll notice that one of the key attributes of the program in those days was creativity. Mr. Goff was a very creative person, and that's the way he taught. I've heard, and I've asked the question of those that are still with us, and were here in those days, what was it like? And it was a little bit different educational process than we use these days, what with our focus on tenure and merit review, and a lot of us, we focus on doctoral degrees. We do put about equal emphasis, though, on experience and practical knowledge with scholarship. And so our faculty are a blend of credentials, but it's very important to us that at the end of the day, we develop new knowledge and scholarship and bring practice and practical experience with that. Hans Butzer, I think, is a pretty good example of that goal and the attributes that we seek in faculty. And so I'm going to give you a few facts and figures on Hans. And I've already warned him at the end of my presentation, I'm going to do a little bit of a roast, and I'll tell you why. So in my wife's direction, I'm not going to tell a joke, but I am going to roast Hans a little bit. And so we'll have a little bit of fun at his expense. Hans has been on the faculty in the Division of Architecture since 1999. I think I'm not too far off. That should be about right, Hans, am I right? Where he started as an adjunct professor, and he's progressively made his way through tenure and was made a full professor a couple years ago as he took over as the head of the Division of Architecture. He is also recognized and known for a couple of outstanding design achievements. Tomorrow there's a tour of the Oklahoma Bomb Memorial, and that was won by Hans and his wife and some colleagues in Germany before he came to the United States. And it was an international competition with, I don't know how many hundred applications or proposals, but Hans' team won that proposal. And I know when you visit it, you're going to find it to be a very moving place and very interesting design, a subtle design, but it really will speak to you as you look at it. More recently, he won a design competition for the Skydance Bridge, which is over I-40. I would also say that my understanding is that the Bomb Memorial is considered to be one of the top 5 memorials in the United States. The Skydance Bridge project, which has the kind of the V shape, replicating the tail feathers of our state bird, the skycatcher, what is this bird? Swallowtail. Swallowtail. Scissortail. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm close to the mockingbird over there. Scissortail skycatcher. So that's top 50 public art installations in the country. So it's worth seeing, especially at night as the LED lights change colors and things and people pass by it. Hans is a partner. I noticed on the website they call themselves directors of Butzer Architects, an interdisciplinary studio in the city that has construction, engineering, architecture. Sometimes they have marketing people. It's kind of an interesting mix of disciplines there in Hans' office. And I think it's sort of representative of college of architecture. His real boss is Tori Butzer, who's also degrees in architecture, and unfortunately she couldn't join us tonight because of some other commitments and some things to deal with. They have 3 daughters, and I just learned that they, a couple of them went out and had a good time Halloween night. Hans did practice in Germany, and that's where he was when they won the award for the design of the memorial. And you might want to tell you a bit more about that experience. He's been on a number of design juries. His resume is fairly full of those. One of those that I know about was, as many of you know, we had the collapse of the bonfire thing at Texas A&M University. We lost 12 students in that. 2 of them were in my college, and Hans was on the jury that selected the firm that designed the new memorial in honor of the fallen students there. According to Hans, was very emotional, as was the Brown Memorial here. And so one of the things architects I think have to deal with is the process of working through, like in that case, the tragedies of a big bomb in Oklahoma City or the loss of students in a bonfire collapse. This one's a little harder for all of us to get degrees from other universities to take, but Hans is a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, and at Texas A&M would go or something like that, and Harvard Graduate School of Design, which I guess is okay. Maybe a second-rate school, but okay at that. And just a few days ago, as was mentioned with Dr. Pilot, Hans was listed as one of the top 30 most influential educators in America in architectural education. And as near as I can tell, looking back a few years, no university had 2 most admired educators on the list the same year. So again, another indication, I think, of the quality of our faculty and their achievements. So I think that's quite interesting. So there's more to say about Hans, but I'm going to call Hans up here because we're going to do something now. And for those of you who aren't familiar, just sort of hang with us. This is part of our fun, a little bit of personal stuff. But Hans always dresses in black. You never see him in anything else. And somebody said the reason architects do that is that we don't know color very well. So I don't know if that's true or not, but at any rate, we're going to do a couple things. During spring, during the holiday last Friday for Halloween, I understand there were 6 or 8 students in the Division of Architecture who dressed up like Hans. And they were running around in black, and they had the glasses, and they were trying to mimic Hans. We actually had another faculty member we just hired to work out on stage who was going around looking like Marvin Malika. If y'all know Marvin over at NC State, he has a distinctive black style, but at any rate, this is Hans' trademark. A couple of years ago, his daughters challenged him to wear different colored socks to the Halloween party, and he came with pink socks on. I don't know how long he wore them, but that day he had pink socks on. And so we're gently kind of trying to move Hans in the direction of some color change a little bit. And so I have a couple of things for Hans. Well, we need for this to be on long enough so Callum can take a picture too. But Hans, here's a white tie for you. This kind of goes with the black.
Johnson.
Yeah. So we're going to put that on and pull it up. We'll get a couple pictures of you. And we also have some white socks. You don't have to put those on now if you don't want to, but at any rate, we're trying to outfit you in a little bit of, hopefully, color coordinated change here. And we're just excited to be able to recognize all this. And, well, there's a trademark right there. Okay? So, congratulations on achievements and for supporting this program. And I think I should probably let you start talking. Okay? So here's your sock.
Y'all hungry? Well, I hope to make this quick and painless. What did we decide, Angela? Are we going to eat and listen, or are we going to listen along the road?
We'll listen.
Outstanding. All right, very good. Well, I really do have to take, well, thank you, Dean, very much. I appreciate the recognition. More importantly, however, we all have to give a round of applause to Catherine Barrett and Angela Person. Everyone else who's on the committee, please stand. That has helped organize this. It is really a Herculean task to pull this off, and I'm very grateful for all the efforts. It's hopefully you can sleep tonight, or tomorrow, I should say.
Friday, very happy.
Yeah.
Just hear the buzz.
Yeah.
Just thrilled.
I wouldn't like that for you. No, but what I'm sharing this evening is very much an attempt to place our work within the context of the 8 paper sessions. And so I've identified what was an interesting aspect to each session, abstract, and paired it with a project from our practice, hoping to draw a relevant parallel. I may even slip in a joke here and there. But the bottom line in all of this is, we meet and gather in sessions like this to exchange ideas. But at the end of the day, the value of the ideas and how that shapes the work that we do in practice, and how we build community. And with the hopes those ideas go to bolster that which we build. I mean, ultimately, architecture is the built idea. And so I'm going to move quickly through the images. Ultimately, they should do more talking than I, is sort of what I always say. I have one last little bit before I move into this. I have a partner in this presentation, Phil. Phil's going to be my foil for the evening. We're going to have a little spatial depth to the presentation, a slightly different voice than mine here. So Phil will be reading the excerpt from the session description to help establish context for the project I'll be sharing. So with that here, I'd like to start with number 1, Phil.
Today, the design process is dominated by the use of technology, from the programming and schematic design phases through design development, construction documents, and into building construction and operation phases.
Thank you. So I'd like to talk about the Oklahoma City Skydance Bridge, and from the standpoint of the role of technology. And this project ultimately, although its origins are like all of our work that intend to help celebrate place, draw from our local conditions, very much, Kristen, you mentioned critical regionalism, is very much a term that, even though it came out in the 80s, I think it's still in. I still go for it. But very much about a place. But we were very much inspired as we were tasked, along with the other teams in this competition, to design something that was supposed to become iconic, a symbol for the city. And so through a series of iterations of a team made up of 8 different people, basically representing 8 different firms, it was very much a consortium. And we always talk about the pains and the joys of collaborating at another point in time. But at the end of the day, it really came down to looking at the state bird and what the bird could teach us about technology and the making of a structure that needs to be lightweight, cost-effective, but at the same time reflective of the shifting forces at this period in Oklahoma City's history. And so you see here, within the context of Route 66, the crossroads, the bridge itself, its location, also very much about connecting not only east to west, but north to south to downtown to the Oklahoma River. Here at this critical juncture as I-40, the new Route 66, passes under. And there you see that this more finite moment, the slight bend of what became the bridge, reflective of the malaligned grid of the city, as it was quickly settled within the course of a week or so in 1889. And so this is the project. There is no way we could have ever designed this without a computer, without Rhino, without Grasshopper. Stan Carroll, those of you who were sat in on the session on Do the Tools Matter, was very instrumental in this, very much my counterpart to this, because I'm very much a Luddite. I can handle the Photoshop, but I can, these are my sketches here. This is the best I can do for the most part. But ultimately it came down to me sitting down with Stan throughout, managing here, those of you who do Grasshoppers, an awful lot of fun, like pulling those switches back and forth. And ultimately those switches were so critical in helping us place the feathers that helped give the bridge its form, and also helped us lay out all the catch files for the bridge. Basically the time frame for the bridge was that it had to open at midnight of December 19th, 2011. The project went to bid August 1st, 2011. And so we had to be completely out of the way of all the work so the highway could open underneath. And thank goodness for the files here, because we were able to use all of this to simply transfer to the fabricators, and they were able to get rolling. And we met our deadline, avoiding a $10,000 per hour fine from the Department of Transportation. And speaking of tools, see, I toyed with the idea of having this in a later session under not genius, but collab, the sources of creativity. But when you have a whole bunch of one-offs trying to work together, and the project's taking just longer than it needs to, you're going to have tension. And after a while, you're going to look at all your partners and think that they're in the trouble. But Bill.
The tension between the agency of the state and that of the individual inherent in public housing projects, innovative financing structures for public housing, new approaches to urban planning and design.
Thank you. So, in terms of the session from Lessons of Home, this is, I guess you could argue, much more serious note. This is a project we just recently were awarded back on Tuesday through a competitive process. It's a really exciting project. We have a lot of images to show, but it's worth mentioning within this context of looking for ways to help get projects going in places where we really need them. We need housing. We especially need better housing in eastern Oklahoma City. And historically, a very rich neighborhood. This is the Page Woodson School. It's been around for about 100 years. And you can see in the image here, it's so desolate now. And it's right there really at the foot of the downtown, but there's so little worthy housing stock. There's slowly this interest in this area in eastern Oklahoma City. But Page Woodson is so amazing because of the history of the students who went here. Ralph Ellison went to school here. Charlie Christian, who played in Count Basie's band, and effectively really put the electric guitar on the map. They went to school here, and so the stories and the people who came out of this school 80 years ago is just so remarkable. And then of course you have, actually it's the nationally renowned Douglas High School Band started here. And so we were so excited to be approached by a friend of mine who's also a developer to start looking at redeveloping. And so he bought Page Woodson this past year, and he's, he's moving along in his age, and he really wants to do a legacy project. And so his interest now is to turn Page Woodson into a community center, and it will all be programmed. The programming will be fed in by community leaders. We spent a lot of time working with the local community to kind of figure out what do we want this to be. It's kind of this, similar to the issue, Sam, that you brought up earlier, the sense of agency, true input from the community to help shape this moving forward. But for our part, it's starting to look not only at issues of walkability and trying to reconnect the project back in the community, looking at sustainability, not just in terms of the materials we use and so forth, but it's really more about social equity and social sustainability, rebuilding the community. And one of the most basic things that we can do now, as we start to look at its existing site condition, is to start to reintroduce, straighten out streets, tie it back into the neighborhood, thinking of this as really the nucleus of new development, trying to connect it over to Washington Park, which is a beautiful park. A lot of elementary schools, my kids have all their soccer games. 4th Street is emerging as a very important east-west street. We've got public transit running out of Stonewall there on the east side of the site. And so now we're starting to look at how we can re-densify. But we can only do this through really inventive financing programs, working with the federal government. And so that's part of our next later work, in order to kind of pull this off, looking at LIHTC financing and all other mechanisms to get underwritten and partially subsidized as well as market rate development. Much of the focus now is on this public space, where we're abstracted on the commemorative plaza, trying to create a safe place for kids from a civic point of view to start to regather at the base of Page Woodson. The main entry here is a beautiful slope down to 4th Street. And so the original concept is to create a series of terraces that step up to the base of the front door, and as all the traffic moves by, you have this beautiful view back up to this, and starting to repopulate with public art and activities at the storefront.
How communities express grief or memorialize events through building, or the ways in which architecture and urbanism are used to create community identity by defining a sense of us and them.
So, had I submitted for this section, I would have submitted the Oklahoma City National Memorial. The issue of politics and memorials is so complicated, and you can't take a lesson here and apply it elsewhere. Every memorial, even though it's part of a larger typology, the conditions, the dynamics, the social dynamics, the community dynamics are so unique that it is just too difficult to see how one can draw conclusions that apply in other places. Maybe that's a comparison. But in 1995, when the bombing went off, as the Dean mentioned, Tori and I were working in Berlin, and it was very interesting because it was at the exact same time that the bombing went off that Christo and Jean-Claude were wrapping the Reichstag. And so every day we were taking the train to work, passing by this piece here. And in German, for German culture, the Reichstag represents just the worst, the absolute low of low in German history. It's all about Hitler, it's about Nazism, the burning of Reichstag in 1933, and eventually shifting then after the war. The new capital, Bonn, is just a kind of a last move to thoroughly cleanse German identity or history in a way, if you will. This memory, this horrific memory that most Germans so wholly regret. But then to see this kind of celebration and then anticipating Foster's glass cupola and in this piece of democracy you can ramp down and watch the plenaries all in action. And then you have this crazy thing happening in the United States, which everyone views as like the bastion of democracy. How is it that we, start bombing our own buildings? And so from a political point of view, it was very, very confusing. It was a very odd set of circumstances from where we were sitting. But this project was also about politics, not in terms of governments. I mean, the governments were so enlightened from the standpoint that shortly after this explosion, federal government, state government, municipal government all stepped back and said, we will not dictate this. We will let the community run this. And that was a very significant move. And so, unlike most of the national memorials you've heard of, this one was so heavily driven by the local community. And interestingly enough, and yet not surprisingly, the architecture community, which is often filled with people who wear black and act really snobby, said, oh my gosh, how could you do anything good if the public is involved? I kid you not. One of the leading architecture competition advisors in the United States derided the process, saying you can't get anything good if the public is involved. Think about that. But anyways, we spent a lot of time working with family members, survivors, the client, collaborating heavily with the contractors and the suppliers and the fabricators. Once we went to construction, tweaking, educating, and so forth, all the details of the project. But it's very much a site in the middle of downtown. The decision to close the Midwestern City Bridge, but to celebrate the survivor tree that's a lone elm at the high point of the site, and to bring reverence to the footprint of the borough building itself, and then introducing through architectural form and landscape form the element of time, the passage of time, and to create a forum, if you will, that allows people to gather and seek their own place within this larger tragedy. That was Texas into the band. So these are images taken within the first 2 years of the memorial, and then these were taken just a year ago. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the bombing, the 15th anniversary of the dedication of the memorial. It's always interesting to see how these places change, both physically as well as the way people choose to use these commemorative spaces.
This session is a call for architects who are working within others' walls. These architects, like Mr. Goff, see the potential in common existing materials and understand how to transform existing spaces into exquisite new architectural places.
So within this session, I interpreted this question of working within someone else's walls twofold. The one piece related to sustainability and the idea of using cheaper materials or recycled materials within architecture. But for me, it was also within the context of the project being designed by a Westerner for a Cheyenne Arapaho community in western Oklahoma. It was very much a different way of interpreting this question of working within someone else's walls. And the project came to us by virtue of my neighbor, who had just finished telling me that his wife hated the memorial design. and then he kind of wrapped it up with, oh, by the way, would you be interested in designing a church? I'm an architect. Anyways, so at the first meeting, they said, well, to be clear, it's for Cheyenne Arapaho community, and we really think that this church needs to look like a teepee. So, our reaction was okay. And of course, as the architect does, we started to change that whole discussion, which I'll get to a different type of question. But what's important to know is that this community in western Oklahoma, it's in Blaine County, the poorest county in the state, and that is one of the poorest states in the union, so you can imagine just the poverty that is there. But the community was founded by this man named Okahata, who was a Cheyenne warrior in the late 1800s, who eventually was captured. He was sent to the East Coast and asked if he could go to the seminary, and he chose to become an Episcopalian deacon. And then he asked to be returned to his community with the hopes of basically keeping his community together under the guise of this Western religion. As you know, so many of the children, Native American children, were shipped off, much in an effort to start to undermine and really to pummel the Native American culture. So he sought to seek refuge, if you will, for the community within the, under the cloak of the Episcopalian faith, and built up this community. It really was, you know, the heart and soul for so many years. He died at the age of 103, and the only structure they ever had, and it only lasted until 1917, was that little mission church. And kind of appropriate, when I came into the picture to work with them, their church was actually abandoned. So when you start to visualize China Arapaho, they're you know, they're Plains Indians, and they've got their tabla hitched onto the back of a horse, right? And that is basically, you know, it's a mobile sense of existence. You know, for them, the things that matter are like the river and the landforms and the constellations. Architecture is completely unimportant to them. So those were the walls in which we had to start to think. Again, the poverty of the community and the importance of designing a community center here on the edge of town, looking at ways in which the China Arapaho conceive and define space, looking at issues of tectonics, the way that historically in this community they would basically clad the buildings with a skin, shield them from the sun, shield them from the rain and the wind. So we reinterpreted it as trying to have this design be about learning from the teepee. So again, it's about contemporary teepee. It's just a steel frame structure with really inexpensive cladding. In this case, we ended up using SIPs. So OSB material filled with wheat straw insulation, all highly recyclable, manufactured all within 500 miles. This was a model, study model. Interestingly, this was a 3D printed model, printed on the very first 3D printer that arrived in Oklahoma City. Instead of just the contrast, it was kind of fun. Study models, process, working with the community, and then of course the excitement of eventually getting to a place where we started to see the first phase of the structure being built. So you see there basically the teepee poles, if you will, and then this very beautiful, simple skin wrapping the frame. Very simple sense of shelter. The decorum is the purity of the materials itself, exposed OSB, and then adorned by altar pieces across the circle, all made by the local community using just a very basic 50-year shingle as the way to clad the structure. Phil.
Can the project type allow for real-time sketching and designing to occur while physically building a full-scale prototype?
So this is about the Sliver, which is the building in which we office. I'm actually an owner as well. My wife and I, along with 3 other couples, made the commitment to actually purchase this really crappy old 100-year-old building or 80-year-old building. And it's the only non-historic building on the site filled with historic tax credit projects on the western edge of downtown. But this project is kind of funny in a way, because here it is, the owners of the firms inhabiting, the future inhabitants of this building, you know, we're tasked to design it and do the CDOCs and so forth. But the irony, of course, is we hardly had any time to work on our own building. And so it really kind of shifted around from person to person, finally landed with a very, very talented architect in our firm who got the drawings produced. But in so many ways, we really were kind of designing and building on the fly. Thank goodness for our contractor, Lingo Construction, with whom we actually try and do all of our work. Here you see the historic district here is Philadelphia, where the whole distribution houses were located for this part of the United States. You see a lot of beautiful north-facing light scoops. There you see our project going into construction. What was really interesting, though, is it was the back alley side of the site still had the railroad tracks for the cars that came in and carrying the big old movie reels, and so they would load them into the back of the building into basically a concrete fireproof room, and then from there distributed. And so we really started becoming intrigued with the whole idea of its location, proximity to the rail, materiality of the rail, and so this is the existing little building that we bought. We bought it from the guy who owns the property next door with just at this building and installed a series of windows looking at downtown right above or adjacent to our site. So when we went to design the second floor, we asked if we could have the air rights over this parking lot, which he also owned. And we just simply turned the second story that way, allowing him still his views. And so in a lot of ways, the building is defined in part by kind of the beautiful materiality of railroad tracks, the boxcars and so forth, of the site, the history of the site, but also defined by this whole idea of looking into and out from this building, much as you would the film itself. So here just simply, here you see the building as we purchased it and as it is today. Second story being kind of pinned together with this key vertical fulcrum piece that links the low horizontal with the turned vertical piece. Kept most of, basically everything inside just cleaned out. And then the intention is that we will start to screen movie films, community films along with that in the film festival every June in the underbelly of our building, kind of give back into that history of the site as historic film art.
Once proudly held aloft, much of the publicly heralded architecture of that period has been forgotten, condemned to insensitive remodeling or demolition.
So I'd like to share an insensitive remodel that we did. And this is, we're really fortunate to have a client here, Norman, actually, who just is obsessed with mid-century modern homes. And this is was a house that he had bought a few years ago, mill-shaped, one-story, absolutely beautiful site. You can see there the elm there. But L-shaped in the way it cradles, and it has a beautiful relationship with the way things cradles a big old tree. But there was a really funky thing going on in the entryway. The entry door was actually set at an angle, so when you walked in, you were looking at this little narrow hallway, a mechanical room, and which made no sense to us. And so we started to kind of peel out all the kind of these funky angled walls that were within this east-west wing, and kind of press the reset button and bring the visitor in from the street parallel to the north-south wing as you pass under this beautiful canopy. And so here you start to see us doing kind of sketch overlays to try and visualize ways now of further modifying the house itself. So here was the kind of entryway that we reworked. We kept the original fireplace, removed a lot of heavy brick walls that were inside, set an angle that basically just did not facilitate the place where we wanted to take the design. That was to strengthen its connection, interior connection to the site itself, not just to the front yard, but also to the backyard, which had already a pool. And so spent a lot of time sketching as much on landscape issues and issues of connectivity with trying to connect from the inside out and the outside in. And the biggest move we made was with having a master bedroom towards the front. We actually pushed the front wall further out and created this bathroom. There's actually an image with the later. You see the old original fireplace over there. We actually pushed the brick wall out to bring light in. And so there's really fun little juxtaposition between arguably the most private space being placed closest to the street behind this privacy wall made up of brick that we just pulled over.
The surrealist game known as exquisite corpse provides an even more democratic model of creativity, wherein multiple artists successively contribute to portions of a drawing without seeing what the artist before had drawn.
So the last project here that I'll share, it has to do with the downtown Central Park. It's a project that we're doing in collaboration with Hargreaves Associates out of San Francisco. Also have a few other collaborators scattered across the country that are part of our team. And it's also important to know that Hargreaves has an office in Cambridge, Massachusetts, New York City, as well as in London. And so we've had players from all these different offices start to get involved. But we've been working on it with them since 2009, and the process has been fascinating too, because as it is a public process, public project, we've had numerous, countless public meetings, garnering input from the community as to what do they think needs to be in their downtown park, showing them iterations, getting feedback, and so forth. So we've been on this now for 5 years now, and already a few people from the Hargreaves office have left, and so we have new project managers. But when we start to talk about this notion of creativity, and knowing that we started in '09, and supposedly construction will finish in 2021, it'll be a wonder if any of us are even alive to take any of the credit. So, but anyways, so it's another thing that's really interesting in terms of collaboration and kind of the idea of who's responsible for a design and so forth. What we learned very quickly at the beginning was this was not our design. We were not allowed to show images without giving credit to the prime. And so I just want to make sure you all know that Hargreaves Associates is in charge of this project, and we are just lucky to tag along. But the core of the concept, this is not built yet, the cafe, an auditorium, a boat rental, and restaurant building. This is we're in charge of more architectural components of this 80-acre park. But for us, in the whole narrative that we built up with George was the idea that we really want this park to speak to kind of the origins of this landscape. So looking at the basic landforms that Quest does, and we have the Arbuckle Mountains, which are about an hour south of here, which are some of the one of the oldest mountain ranges in North America. Right? Most people don't think of Oklahoma as being the home of one of the oldest mountain ranges in North America. And we also had an ocean, by the way, in the southern part of our state. So lucky us. We still have properties along that beachfront. But anyways, as I mentioned early on, the state was settled in a matter of days. And as we were looking, trying to understand kind of a place of origin for our design work, conceptualizing, we were looking at some of the early historical narratives from when Central Oklahoma City was settled, and came across this beautiful little write-up in Harper's Weekly from 1889. And really we're enamored by this sentence here: at twilight, the campfires of 10,000 people gleamed on the grassy slopes of the Cimarron Valley, where, the night before, the coyote, gray wolf, and the deer had roamed undisturbed. And so this was really our point of departure. We're looking at these kind of very primal components of the Oklahoma landscape to see how they start to inform our way of creating horizontal components in this very wide open and really brand new, from scratch park. And so as we move forward, we started to look at other projects that started to articulate some of the qualities that we were really interested in. There's Herb Green's Prairie Chicken House, which is just down the road here from Bruce Rock's colleagues. And other places where you have very successful tectonic kind of haptic textured park structures, and also trying to better understand what makes a good people place. And then starting to sketch, and starting to look at, again, this whole juxtaposition between this horizontal component with this vertical kind of Z-axis component. This is just an image that Tori took yesterday. We're in the process right now trying to figure out what does this thing want to be. We really started to zero in on the idea of this lantern that serves the gateway into the park, on the convention center, the downtown cafe, and then carrying forward this really strong horizontal roof that is itself then left to be suspended off of this heavy anchoring fireplace, and allowing people basically to filter from the north, from the downtown, southwards into the park. So this is the context for that cafe building they just saw, moving from north to south into the larger park itself. This is another stage piece that we're working on. The boathouse here off of this lake, that's a place to pull the water, the air out of the southwest, to pull the coolness over across the larger open gathering space. And there, of course, you can see kind of bracketing back to the first project I shared, the Skydance Bridge. Now the Skydance Bridge itself is a key linchpin, is trying to connect the downtown to the river. This is the view as you come in from the south, up high, and kind of gliding down into views, vistas over the park, downtown. The concept that the stage pavilion here is set up to where it's actually open in the back, so that people can gather, watch performances, see the downtown, or from the downtown you can look through the spectacles back into the public space. It's really very much a reflexive type experience. Boathouse, views to and views out from. And here that cafe piece serving as a very important edge that filters people, that welcomes people. The lantern off of the main Oklahoma City Boulevard into the gardens. Here you start to see the first modeling shifting from sketches and physical models into rhino models to try and understand light, balancing light from the lantern to the cafe piece.
If projects are going to be collaborations, why not spend more time teaching communication and decision making rather than drawing a perspective?
And so for this last session, I'm cribbing comments from Evie, from your presentation. I was just so thrilled when you were talking about handcraft and digital craft. It's just a beautiful way to summarize, what really shouldn't be an either or, but it has to be a both and. And so, I would offer, without any more images of the projects, just the idea that just because we have all these digital tools and we're enamored with them, we talk about collaboration and so forth, but ultimately, the role of the architect to do better work. We talk about ideas, the ideas to the layperson sound so complicated, right? But at the end of the day, the people for whom we are building just want a good, beautiful building that works with, that accommodates, right? And so, it's the issue of authorship and reader. The architect may have their intention, right? But how the architecture is taken in is up to everyone else who is not aware of all the discussions that we have. But more importantly than anything else, we have to continue to accumulate new tools. We have to learn the digital stuff and the fabrication stuff, in addition to learning to be better at sketching. It's not an either or proposition, it's a both and. And so I leave with this idea that, for me, sketching is about vision. It's that moment of inspiration. That's really where the creating takes place. And the software is much like the making. It's where you define the path of where that vision needs to go. So with that, I close and thank you for your patience and for abating your hunger. Thank you. Were there any questions, by the way, or we can bring on the food too, I guess. There's Drew. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Andrew's our speaker for tomorrow afternoon. Great to have you with you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions right now?
I'll be there too. So.
Actually, let's eat.